Pierre Poilievre drops another plank of his platform talking about how he's going to give tax breaks to people who invest in Canada. He also experiences his first heckle. Welcome to the Canadian Shield. My name is Sterling. I'm your host. Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives released another plank in their platform to help repair Canada and lead all of us to prosperity. This one has to do with the capital gains tax that we're all so familiar with. Now, I'm going to let you hear just about a minute of the post that he put up on X, and then I'll make clear why I think it's a great idea.
Imagine a proud local manufacturer has a big piece of vacant land it doesn't need. They'd love nothing more than to sell the land to a home builder and reinvest the proceeds in the state-of-the-art Canadian factory. Machines roaring, workers clocking in, paychecks flowing. Canadians get the homes they need. Workers in this factory generate more economic output, driving up their wages and creating even more jobs. And both companies can turn a profit, paying more taxes for social programs. Win, win, win. But there's a big problem. Wham! The capital gains tax would take a big bite out of the sale of the land. So, that local manufacturer decides not to sell it to the home builder. And instead, the land sits vacant, the homes don't get built, and the proceeds of sale are never made available to buy all those machines and hire all those workers. That is what we call the lock-in effect. Bad for investors, worse for our economy. It blocks our businesses from growing, stifles innovation, and keeps us dependent on the U.S.
So that sounds like a fairly straightforward idea that he's just going to cut the capital gains tax if they sell that property to people who are going to then develop it for the better part of Canada, right? For the improvement of Canada, whether that be housing, whether that be a new business, and all of the things that go along with that. And of course, then they get to defer any payments that they might have to put onto that money, because as it stands right now, you have to pay a lot of money, a big percentage of your capital gains. And let's be honest, we need more people gaining capital instead of just the Mark Carneys of the world of Canada getting rich while the rest of us get poorer and poorer. We have to think about how we can improve the middle class. And the only way that you can improve the middle class, of course, is to have an abundance of jobs. So Pierre Poilievre's plan to just allow companies to sell off their land to another developer, or if it was farmland and you were selling it off to somebody, like that. There's a lot of examples that could help Canada to move forward and to improve jobs, make development, because it's only with development. You hear the Liberals talking about these words development all the time, but in reality, they never do any of it. They always tell you that you gotta wait. That's because with the net zero. Now, I know many of you might have seen the Moose on a Loose, because I get a lot of comments, and that's a great report, and I'm not going to try and steal from that. I would just point out that there's a really good report on Moose on a Loose to how Mark Carney might be invested in the failure of Canada. If I remember, I'll leave a link to it down in the description, but I encourage you all to go and see it. Pierre Poilievre has another idea where he's allowing people that have to travel for work to write off their expenses, whether that be the cost of transportation or the food, or if you have to spend the night. Anybody over 120 kilometers. So if you're 2-3 hours from where you live to go to work, then you're able to write off all of your travel expenses, which is a lot of burden to people, right? When they say to themselves, well, I'm only earning this much money, but now I got to pay for the hotel room. Not everybody gets a per diem, don't forget. So a lot of these guys are traveling very large distances on their own dime.
That's why I'm announcing today that Common Sense Conservatives will stop corporations from writing off private jets used for luxury executive travel. We will only allow corporations to write off the equivalent of a commercial airline flight. And we will pass the Tax Fairness for Traveling Trades Workers Act, allowing our trade workers to write off the full cost of their food, transportation, and accommodation for any job-related trips that go more than 120 kilometers, regardless of whether they require lodgings. We also ensure that charter flights to remote locations with no commercial flight options will be exempt from my law, so that no tradespeople are impacted when they travel to remote areas for work. Trades workers deserve the same tax rules as CEOs when they travel to get the job done. My Common Sense Conservative government will restore Canada's promise.
This is a really good plan. Do I think it'll work out the way that he's describing it? No, I don't. But I do believe that it will work out for the tradesmen. Do I feel that Pierre Poilievre will be able to get the corporations to stick to that? No, because they'll just try to claim that they're moving around, they're on their flight so that they can develop business somewhere. And I'll let them argue about that on the floor or wherever they do that, or with the accountant wherever those loopholes will be put in. Do I believe that a tradesman is going to gain a lot of ability to move around with a lot more peace of mind? Yes, absolutely. Do I feel that it's going to make a tradesman have more money to offer to the house that he's trying to build, or to the family that he's trying to build, or just generally to his life? Absolutely. And when people have more money, despite what everybody wants you to believe, yeah, they like to put away for their retirement, but for the most part, they are the people that are driving the economy. Let's remember that without the middle class, there is no economy. You have the haves and the have-nots, but with the middle class, you have the guys in the middle, the people in the middle who are actually earning money. And the United States is the first country in the world to have the middle class, because they removed the restriction on you have to get the permission of the leadership, that Mark Carney has in his mind, like the Liberal Party has in their mind, where that you have to get their permission to even put a shovel to plant a tomato in the backyard. So it's a great plan, and it will allow for people to travel more, which will generate more income, whether you be staying in a hotel, whether you be paying for local regional flights, whether you just be leaving the money at home so that your wife can buy groceries and all of the things that goes along with that, or your husband, or whatever it may be that's getting that you're leaving the resources with. It's a great idea, and I believe that it'll work. I do believe that the corporations will get grumpy about it, but honestly, if they're writing off their jet fuel, at this point, I just don't care. The middle class is what matters. I picked up a couple of random posts that I want to talk to you about. Ryan Garrettson he posted this thing from CTV News. Have you canceled your plans to travel to the U.S.? We want to hear why. And he says the media wants to know if their propaganda is working. And, so I guess you'll write in and say, yeah, I'm no longer going to go to the United States. Though I think that, that's a tall order. Now, for those of you that might not understand, those of you that are, say, new to Canada or don't know what the term the snowbirds means, it doesn't mean the really cool jet fighters that do this stuff in the air, though they are called the snowbirds. It's a term referred to people who spend their winters for the big places they go are Texas, they go to Arizona, and they go to Florida. And if you're wondering, how do I know that those are the three primary places? Because even though those places are in the regions that don't have any winter, they all have hockey teams. They all have hockey teams because when Canadians are there in the winter, they want to watch hockey. So there's a lot of money being spent on these hockey teams. You can always tell. And there's so many Canadians going down there that, they can put in a hockey team, or in the case of Florida too. So I don't necessarily think that this is going to hold anything, but I do believe that the CTV is fishing for it so that they can try to get you to put up a little video on their Twitter page or whatever. There's a couple of pretty good posts. Starting next fall, I hope to spend 5 or 6 months a year in the United States. I will go to see Trump's fireworks if he does it in DC for the 4th of July. No, I was planning a trip to Toronto, but I felt safer in the United States. And this one Canadian trees, just like an arsonist likes to hang around to assess their handiwork, because he says in the post they want to see if their propaganda is working. I just wanted to show you this sign because I think it's really funny with the vote Mark Carney. I think that's really, really, people can be very creative, no? The food professor put up a couple of posts, which I could have got from other places. This one is from the OECD. And I wanted to show this to you because I know you hear the term OECD and you don't quite necessarily understand what it means. I even make reference to it because it's a group of countries that Canada belongs to, and we keep track of different things inside of we work as a partnership for trade and stuff like that. And you can see that in the OECD between 2015 to 2024, and it says Q3, so that would be up to October of last year. Canada is 35th out of 36th. We are last for anybody that's making money. As you can see, Luxembourg's GDP shrunk, so that's probably something for their government to worry about. And in their countries at the top of the list, we got Turkey that gained 35%. So it's not looking really well for Canada's economy. And like I told you at the beginning of the video, it's come to light that Mark Carney might be invested in the collapse of Canada. And certainly there's really strong indications as to why he's trying to shut down Canada's LNG. From the same poster, the food professor, but he got this one from La Presse. Growth in domestic product GDP per capita in real terms after inflation at purchase power parity between 2014 and 2025. It's essentially the same. The growth is the same, but they've just added countries that are closer to our wealth, right? So you can see the USA went up 20%, Denmark, even Germany grew, and they're over there complaining that their economy is too small. A country like Canada, we are being held down. It's like we got somebody sitting on us. It's a ball and chain that is, in the shape of a red L. If I'm honest with you, I mean, I'm just being honest. Going over to Mark Carney, who's being awfully quiet on the weekend because his handlers don't want him to be talking to the press during the weekend when people have time to pay attention to the news because they're not struggling to stay alive or try to get food on the table. That's why he's running such a short campaign, and that's why he's not saying very much, and that's why he won't allow cell phones in his place, and that's why he's got all kinds of restrictions on independent media coming into his venues, because he just can't handle people to see the truth. He can't expose himself to the true light of day. You compare that to the Poilievre rally. There's cell phones everywhere. There's so much independent media in the media area where they're allowed to set up the heavy duty cameras, not the cell phone cameras, but the big guys, right? The big microphones. And so you can't even compare the two of them. One is like the time you got called to the auditorium and because you had to go, and the other time is you got invited to a bush party and you got to show up if you wanted to. Like, it's just night and day. And I believe that anybody, even a liberal individual watching the two of them, has to understand the difference, has to understand that will only magnify 100 times when you have anything to complain to the government, when you try to get your own way, they are going to silence you and shut you down exactly in the same manner. They won't care that you casted your vote. They won't care that you gave them 100 hours in their door knocking. They won't care about any of that. They only care about themselves, and they will absolutely turn on you in a heartbeat. Now, Mark Carney did post something on Twitter, though. The Liberal Party posted this little video and talking about how Mark Carney thinks he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Mark Carney will immediately cut taxes for the middle class. Yeah, just like he rolled back the taxes on the carbon tax. He's going to give it to the industrial carbon tax. He wants you to believe that industrial carbon tax doesn't cost you any money, which of course is just a ridiculous concept. I mean, how can a man who claims to have a doctorate in economics try to look you straight in the eye and try to tell you that the carbon tax doesn't cost you any money? I mean, you can tell me whatever you want, bud, but the words coming out of your mouth don't make no sense. And this post got so heavily bombarded, I just had to show you some of it. Mark Carney is avoiding the media this weekend. Why? His doctoral thesis plagiarism. So that's like the first post. Then CBC Watcher put, so yes, it's revolting, but it's also revealing, and thankfully it's happening before Canadians hit to the polls. Because now there's no excuse, no spin, no pretending. The Liberal Party isn't just corrupt, it's compromised, and the country can't afford another minute of it. And that's because Mark Carney is saying nothing to the egregious behavior of the person who is running in Toronto and trying to take control of that seat for the Liberal Party. And if you're in that riding and you're listening to my voice, you should absolutely remember that just because it was the Conservative this time doesn't mean it won't be you the next time. There's no excuse for this behavior. And Mark Carney, absolutely, if that guy gets past Monday without having to resign his seat, we have to be talking about election interference. We have to start looking at ethics committees. We have to start considering in our mind serious actions, legislative action that can be brought toward the Liberal Party and the Mark Carney and the fella at the same time, because this is not the way Canadian politics go. And I don't care what anybody says. I come from people who will fist fight you over politics, and I'm telling you right now, this is not the look you want for Canada. You might as well throw religion into the mix and let's just get it on. Brian Lilly posted in yesterday's Journal de Montreal, there are 4 pages devoted to Mark Carney, Brookfield, and his odd connections. Let's just say it's flattering. It isn't flattering coverage in Quebec's biggest paper. It's all about how he's connected with people that are definitely more invested in having Canada have no LNG. And like I told you earlier, the Moose on the Loose did a great little video on it. I'm sure it's probably still up and running. It's really comprehensive. He did a lot of work on it. I'm not going to try to take that away from him, though I would, if I can remember, I'll put a link. But I would tell you that it's very damning. It's extremely damning, and it does not make it look good for the Canadian population. And you have to wonder what Mark Carney's real motives are and how badly he's being a hypocrite on this clean, net zero stuff. Before we go to the heckler at the Winnipeg rally for Pierre Poilievre, I want to show you this post that I picked up from Desiree. Louisiana just secured a $5.8 billion investment from Hyundai. Governor Jeff Laundrie, who I'm assuming is the fellow in the video, credits President Trump's leadership, saying $50 billion in construction projects are rolling out this summer, a record for any administration. Over 5,400 new jobs, tax reform, education reform, public safety. This is what America First policies look like while DC drags its feet. Real leadership is delivering.
Look, I think that this is America seeing the America First policy in action, right? It's not just promises, it's about action. And not only and I appreciate their patience, because all last year, many of these legislators, the Speaker and the Senate President, we worked on making Louisiana as friendly for business as the President is making America. We worked on public safety, we worked on education reform, which the President's been working on. We worked on tax reform, historic tax reform. And what I can tell you is, to echo what the President said, in Louisiana right now, I believe before the summer's over, we'll have $50 billion worth of construction projects going on in Louisiana.
50 billion US dollars in construction going on before the end of the summer, which is not that far away, as we are almost in April. So he's talking about $50 billion going to be flowing around his economy on top of the $5.8 billion that's going to be invested in just the one plant. Not to mention Hyundai is also wanting to put in their own smelter and put in their own electrical generating station. I'll do a different video on the electric generating station and the smelter. Well, that's probably because in Korea, they already know what they're doing. Like, they probably have a smelter in Korea and they know what they're doing that way. So they probably are, quite adept at doing that. What I want you to appreciate is, first of all, it's 50 billion American dollars, right? So what's that going to be in Canadian? 80, 90? And it's going to be spent on people with shovels in the ground, right? You got to pour the cement. You need truck drivers. You need heavy equipment operators. You need the people to haul the stuff away, which is, again, dump trucks. You need electricians. You need the amount of tradesmen that it requires is so much that it's going to amount to about $50 billion. That's all going to be going into everybody's pocket. They're going to take that home. They're going to spend it at the restaurant. They're going to spend it at the hockey games. They're going to spend it. Well, I don't know. I don't think Louisiana has a hockey team, but they got basketball. They got football. They got New Orleans. I mean, they got there's lots of ways that it'll be spent. And they will be spending it at restaurants. They will be spending it at the corner stores. They will be spending it on buying things, delivered to the door. They will be buying it at the local vendors. They will be doing all of the things that money generates. And that's just one state. And that's just one little cog in the machine of the idea that the economy is being rebuilt. So when you look at Mark Carney telling you that everything has to be clean, when you look at listen to Mark Carney tell you that it all has to be regulated, heavily regulated, so that the rest of the world can look at us and smile and tell us that we're fooled because they're making it for half the cost. The point, what I'm trying to get you to understand is that no matter where you are on the spectrum, how can you not want a good job? Either you own the company and you want people to be spending your money there, or you want to start a company and you want to be able to get the company off the ground without too much regulation that Mark Carney's going to put in your way, net zero, net zero, net zero, central government net zero. Or you just need a decent job so that you can get things going, buy yourself a nice vehicle, do the things that you like to do with your spare time. None of these are going to happen under the Liberal government. None of these are going to transpire under the totalitarianism of the centralized government bureaucracy top down. Only the very few richest people get to talk to me. None of these things are going to help Canada get off the ground. And we as Canadians need to recognize it. Here you can see it happening. It's only a couple of months he's been at it. It's not like he's taken 4 years. I mean, think of all the promises the Liberal Party has made over the last 6 years. Have any of them come to fruition? No, but here we got Hyundai before April 2nd, putting shovels in the ground and throwing big checks around, and everybody is getting hired, and it's warm and fuzzy, and everybody's loving it, and there's going to be money, and then those jobs, once the places are built, will turn into different jobs, and then houses will have to be built because people will come to do the jobs. It's just, it ripples. And all of these jobs are not going to be $1 million jobs. They're going to be the $100,000 jobs right in the middle of the rich and the poor, which is why we call it the middle class. Decent job, decent house. Simple. Now I ask you as you listen to my voice, Can you tell me what's wrong with that and why you would feel that giving your vote to the Liberal, NDP, anybody who wants to take that away from the country would be good for your future? Allow me to set the stage. Pierre Poilievre is on the main stage at the Winnipeg rally, where they're, Winnipeg conservatives, there's a lot of them, in Manitoba. And he's in Winnipeg, and then he's talking to the crowd. And, well, let's just listen, and then we'll talk about it.
Or is it time to put Canada first for a change with a conservative government that will axe taxes, build homes, unleash our resources so that we can bring home our jobs and confront the Americans in a position of strength? That is the choice that we're facing. Thank you very much. And we're going to cut his taxes too. Love you too, buddy. We'll cut his taxes too.
What a contrast between the one where the guy was able to get close to the stage and then yell it out over the crowd about the Epstein. And that same individual did another one with Catherine McKenna, who I have no patience for, because she feels that anybody that doesn't agree with the Liberal Party should be put in re-education camps. Nonetheless, I want to point out a couple of things. First of all, that crowd handled it really well. I couldn't make out what the guy said. I tried a couple of times. I listened. I looked at the closed captioning. I believe that what's important about the fact that he couldn't be heard clear over the cameras because he couldn't get close enough. There was that many people there, and he was probably scared, because the left is only strong in big bad numbers. Only when they can gang up on you and bully you do they have courage. Otherwise, they are quite beta, right? And then to hear the crowd just start chanting, "Bring it home, bring it home, bring it home," and then Pierre Poilievre, not missing a beat, says, "Don't worry, we're going to cut his taxes too." Meaning, I'm here to be prime minister of everybody, not just the people that agree with me, not just the people that are misled by the hatred that is coming out of the far left. And I think that he handled it really well, and I believe that it's an excellent testament to the way the two sides deal with the kinds of issues that Canada is confronted by. And ask yourself, which side do you want to be on? Do you want to be on the side filled with so much hatred you can't even get out a coherent sentence, that you have to do it from the outside, from nearly in the back of the room, because you're so scared to move to the front? Or do you want to do it from the side that just wants to make sure you get paid and you can go home and nobody cares what you do after that? Like, you can do your own thing. Nobody cares what your lifestyle is like. You can try to tell yourself that it's all about voting against Donald Trump if you want to, but I promise you, if you were able to prove to me that Donald Trump realized that you were voting against him and he didn't laugh his head off, I would be surprised. I would be willing to bet that he wouldn't pay attention to what you're doing at all. All right, I'm going to wrap here. I want to thank you for listening. I'll talk to you next time.